Here we go. Lisa Doble, breast cancer survivor. And we're here at Death Diner. Would you, let's see. I want to remember what we were going to talk about.
Do I have to click recording or
I'm recording. Yeah, I'm recording. Okay. So, did your breast cancer diagnosis change your motivation in regards to what you wanted to do with the rest of your life?
Well, it put a whole new meaning to the rest of my life, because I really thought that I was invincible. I had never even really imagined that I wouldn't be 150 years old. And I thought, my kids and my grandkids and my great grandkids, I'm going to be around forever. People be like, when is she leaving?
That blows my mind.
But having someone sit you down and say to you, my dear, you have cancer, I just kind of was like, I'm sorry, what did you say? And then I thought, what does that mean? I mean, what does that mean? And after a lot of different appointments with a much better doctor, I said, what does this mean? Does this mean I don't renew my driver's license and my library card? I mean, is this check, please? I'm out. And he said, hell no. He said, girlfriend, I'm not letting you go that route. And so he said, we're going to look way down the road with you. And it really is a lot about your attitude, as in addition to, who's caring for you, how you're caring for yourself, what you're doing, the treatments, the level of severity of your illness. There's just so many different aspects of what's going on in your world that impacts your thoughts of, is this going to be the end of me, or is this just going to be a new beginning for me?
Did they give you any kind of because I remember they gave me 5 years. So they didn't want to talk about anything past 5 years. And I know they do that with people who are metastatic. They give them a 5-year countdown. And I just remember them going, well, you got 5 years. I'm like, I'm 38 years old. You're telling me 5 years?
Well, the first doctor I went to was foolish enough to tell me that, I couldn't go to Hawaii for Christmas, and I couldn't, that he was just rattling off a list of what I couldn't do. And he was so much about doom and gloom. I looked at my friend who had gone to the appointment with me, because my husband was out of town on business. So I was there with my girlfriend, Kim, and she and I are sitting up against a wall, and we felt like bad kids in the principal's office, because this guy was sitting in a big old leather chair and looming over us, and he's my dear, you have cancer, and blah, blah, blah. And I thought, holy shit. And you're gonna have chemo, and you're gonna have radiation, you're gonna lose your hair, you're gonna do this, you're gonna do that. I said, all that from one test? Are you serious? And he said, don't tell me about cancer. And I said, I'm not telling you about anything. I said, as a matter of fact, stand up. And he's like, what? And I go, stand up. And he stood up. I said, give me a hug. And he's like, why? And I said, because I am never going to see you again. Bye-bye. And I dug out.
Gosh. Oh my.
And Kim and I left, and we got to the parking garage, and I looked at her and I said, I don't know about you, but that was probably the most fucked up meeting I've ever had with anybody in my entire life. Bar none, I've had some pretty weird meetings. But that guy just did not get me. And I am not putting my life in the hands of somebody who does not give two shits about me as a person.
Yeah.
And so I called another friend, and I said, sit down, I got something to tell you. And I said, I just got a diagnosis of breast cancer, and I'm not really sure what I'm going to do next. Well, fortunately, my girlfriends are all just the power bitches, just like me. And she said, well, I'll tell you what you're going to do next. My husband works at Hoag Hospital, and you're going to go down and you're going to see Dr. Silverstein, who just came to Hoag from UCLA Medical.
I want to say, is that San Diego? Where is Hoag?
Hoag is in Newport Beach.
Okay. Yeah,
I live in Orange County.
Familiar. Yeah.
Yeah. And he just joined our staff, and he's running the breast care center. And he wrote the book on your diagnosis. He is a professor. He teaches. He's all about
New,
curing people, so
new. Right.
extending their life. And he said, and this guy, he's your guy. So I went in and I saw him and I said, okay, so can I go to Hawaii? He said, absolutely. We're going to have to take me with you. I'm like, I like this guy. This is my guy.
Mm.
And I said, renew my library card, renew my driver's license. He said, absolutely. And join a few new clubs while you're at it. How about Toastmasters? Try a few new things. I'm like, all right. So he kind of changed my whole mindset from the doom and gloom that I got from doctor number one to, this is what we're going to do. We're going to kick cancer's ass, and this is how we're going to do it. And it's going to be a 1, 2, 3 kind of a thing. He kept it really simple, really high level. And he said, let's just take it, one step at a time. And he said, I'm not going to push you into anything you don't want to do. Not going to, do anything that you're uncomfortable with. But he said, this isn't my first time on the merry-go-round. And he said, I've done this before a couple times. So
Yeah.
you're in good hands.
Yeah.
And I was.
And
I am.
I think it's great when you go with someone who works at a teaching hospital.
Yeah.
Because it's like an ever evolving practice. Because was yours 2012?
No, it was 2008.
Okay. So mine was 2012. And I know that a lot of like stuff had like come about in like the couple of years before I was diagnosed in regards to like oncotypes. And so like before that, Mr. Colonel Mustard, Stuffy McGee would have been like blanket treatment, treat everybody all the same way. Whereas like the doctor you had was more of like a specified like type probably. And so you probably got more specified treatment and less over treatment.
I had to turn you up. My old ears were kind of like, what's she saying?
Say what?
What? So I don't know if I got louder too, but you got louder, so now I'm better.
So did all that kind of change like your perspective? I mean, it kind of blows my mind that there's people out there that never think that they're gonna die. And I grew up with someone who was chronically ill. And it was like, oh, well, it's hereditary. And so I was the doom and gloom, like I was like, well, I'm going to get it one day. So like to have just people like, God bless you, all like la-di-da, like never thinking you're going to die.
I was very Scarlett O'Hara. I was like, I'm going to worry about that tomorrow. Today, I'm going to do this. And I just thought, and then tomorrow I'd say, you know what, I'm going to worry about that next week because it really just isn't on my agenda today.
Well, and that's kind of like how I go about it now. I'm kind of like, whatever, someday. I don't think about it happening.
No.
Not in the hospital and nothing's happening.
Yeah. Well, the thing I say to anybody who will listen to me is, I could get hit by a bus tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I'm making the most of it today.
Right.
And then tomorrow comes, I'm like, oh, got another day to rip off my Far Side calendar. Let's see what we can screw up today.
Right. Far Side calendar.
Yeah.
Let's see. What do you hope people will remember you for?
I hope people will remember me for being a really good ride or die friend. I have tried to be since I was little, just a really good friend who is there when you need a shoulder, when you need, a backup at a bar fight. I mean, whatever it is, I want people to say, God, I'm so glad she was with me when I did whatever it was.
Yeah.
Because, even if it's, buying a house, buying a car, my nickname at work was Hook Me Up Lisa, because whatever somebody needed, I'd be like, oh, I know somebody. I know a guy who knows a guy. And I'd be like, all right, that's good. What do you need? You need a husband? You need a Chevy? You need a new house? What do you need? I know somebody. I know a guy.
Oh my gosh, that's
so cool. Yeah, and I hope that they'd remember me as bringing some fun to the party.
Yeah, because I I know my handful of fuddy-duddies, and I went to a concert the other day. Me and my daughter went and saw Flock of Seagulls. It was great.
Oh.
The thing that I remember is this one guy, and another reason why he stuck out, because he looked a lot like my brother-in-law, but like he wasn't moving, and he didn't have any kind of facial expression.
Was he paralyzed?
No.
Oh, that's too bad.
Someone even comes over and picks his hand and like waves it up and down, and he's like looking around, and he like looks around and kind of like does one of these, kind of like, is this okay? And I wanted to go over to him, and I want to go like, buddy,
check him for a pulse.
What happened to you? What happened to you? You can't even, like, you're not smiling, you're not, and it was just so sad to think that, it could go, and he was like 50 something, to think that you could go that far and not be able to, like, poor guy probably has a really hard time pooping. But it just, I love that you're the one that, like, you want to encourage people to loosen up and have fun, and I think that that's very much a necessity.
Well, and that's kind of how, even my businesses are all about, taking a really shitty situation, whether it's, the loss of a loved one, or, the loss of your hair. Both of them are basically about taking a negative situation and turning it into a positive, because that's the way I was raised. My dad used to always say to me, if you're going to complain about something, come to the table with 2 good solutions, or keep your freaking mouth shut. And so that's it, and if you're going to complain about, losing a family member, losing your hair, it's like, hey, I lost my eyebrows, but I got a really good new product that I created.
Right. So, I always wanted like those pinup eyebrows, and I used to like, the Japanese women know how to do their eyebrows, and I didn't until I started looking at the products that they had before cancer. I kind of had it done. I swear I had like one hair that was going here, and I would like try and like keep it in place. And then when I lost all my hair, then I was like, I really like to draw it on. And at first I didn't know what product to use. And someone like the photos of, like after treatment, I just looked like I drew it on with a marker, because I had like, it was like a pomade, but it was like black pomade, because it has to be really heavy and like dense, otherwise it's going to sweat off, or it's not going to look like an eyebrow. Or so when I started using your product, I was like, oh my God, I can go swimming and it stays on, and I don't come out looking like an egg, because all my makeup came off. So like, I go in, I come out looking exactly like I did when I came in. Lips are on, eyebrows are on, and now I'm like, this is the stuff right here. So I've been using your product, almost 5 years, I want to say.
Since we met.
Yeah. And so I always make sure I have 2 of them like in the drawer, in case, because I don't go out of the house very often without them.
Right.
And this is about as minimum as I get. But
you got to keep one in your pocket in case you get taken, like Liam Neeson's daughter. It's like, you can take me, but I need my freaking eyebrows. Don't take me without my brows.
Right. I'd be back there trying to find some kind of Sharpie or something to like.
There you go.
But just to be able to have a product like yours where I don't have to worry about it, like, and it's reliable. And I mean, if anything, I just found this stuff ironically at the Japanese market, has a Kewpie on it. It says face wash. I don't know what the heck is in it. One little pump and it all comes off. Whereas like normally with like a face wipe, I have to like really, really take it off. I don't know what's juju is in this stuff, but you go like this and it's all off, and I'm like, holy moly.
Kabuki cleanser.
I don't know, but
Well,
It's it,
that's the reason that I brought the pomade into my brand, was because when I created the men's product, I knew that men would not want to keep kind of checking in the mirror and be like, are they
yeah,
still there? Do they
yeah,
still look good? You
yeah,
know, they want to be able to get up in the morning, put on their brows, and then, you know, go to the gym, go to the office, you know, go surfing after work, go to the club, and wake up the next morning and their eyebrows aren't on their pillowcase.
yeah,
They get up and look in
right,
the mirror like, that's still me.
right.
And and then when I brought that, I think it was to Cosmoprof, all the women that were coming to my booth said, well, I want that too. I want that too. I want that long. Okay, you know,
Right.
new. So it crossed the bridge from the guys to the girls. So now it's Forever Brows for girls and Brows for bros for boys.
Yeah, and my daughter,
Sometimes the boys wear the Forever Brows, but that's a whole nother story,
hey, whatever. And
right?
the great part is you have the templates if you don't draw them on, but you have
Or
like,
if they're already gone.
I don't even know how many templates you have. You have like a bajillion templates. So it's
I
not
have 10.
like this. It's not just like this, which it's like you can shape it to the shape of your face. And then like, you know, my thing is I'm gonna draw them on until I get like unless I have a stroke or something and I can't do it anymore, because I'm so scared to get even like the quasi temporary one. What if like, you know, I've seen people and I had it done that it was like, oh, I can't quit looking at like your blue eyebrows. So
Right?
I'm gonna be on this train until I can't be on this train anymore. But
Well, good. I
uh
love lifelong customers. That's commitment, baby.
yeah, it is. It's like sign me. It's like where'd I sign in blood? Um, but I know you have another product that you've helped promote and helped create, I believe. And I would love to talk about that. But first, I think I would like you to talk to me about what you would like. So I would like to ask each person that I interview what they would like their funeral to be like, because a lot of times we don't talk about these things with our family members because it's like too morbid or whatever. And then when something happens, you don't end up knowing what your loved one would even want. So
Yeah.
I would love to, I mean, if you want, mine's pretty nutty and I don't know if it's going to happen, but like my daughter and I have talked about just for like shits and giggles, because it's not morbid. It should be fun, you know, because it's a celebration
Yeah.
of your life. What would you like
Exactly.
yours to be like?
I'd like mine to be a fantastic party. I would absolutely insist on there being amazing music, because I've always been very, very into music. And you know, I would want my funeral to be like my wedding, because my husband's and my wedding was so fun and so fantastic. It had absolutely no agenda, no game plan, no nothing. It was just, I mean, we didn't even have a videographer. We bought a video camera and passed it around and just said, you know, do something, do anything. It ended up in the men's room, but that's another story. But
Oh my
you
God.
know, I would want, that's how I live my life. I just want people to have a really good time, and you know, everybody get up to the mic, and each person tell a story about, you know, some ridiculous thing that we did together. I mean, we could be there for hours. They might have to actually make a movie out of it, because people are like, I don't, there's so many things that have happened to me, and unless you were there with me, you'd be like, she's exaggerating, that didn't happen. And the people that were with me are like, oh no, that so happened, that totally happened, oh my god, she's actually not even telling all the details that happened. So that would be fun. My idea of fun, if I could orchestrate, and I am quite the control monster, and I would love to orchestrate my own funeral, is that, you know, everybody would, you know, everybody fly in and someplace fun, you know, that's warm and wonderful and easy, and just, you know, have a lot of drinks and a lot of good food and a lot of good music, and talk story about the fun that we had.
Do you have you thought about like what would happen with your remains?
Oh yeah, that's what my remains would go into a biourn and I'd grow a tree.
So
and I've already chosen the tree.
So tell me how that works.
I've actually done one for everybody in my family that's already passed away. I created the biourn, which is a biodegradable cremation urn. It's handmade out of cotton and it grows a living memorial. So it basically creates a circle of life. And I got the idea when my father-in-law was told that his illness was terminal. He and my husband had a very long talk, and my husband came home and told me that he and I were going to be responsible for the care of his dad's remains, his cremated remains. And so upon hearing this, I looked over at our mantle, which was filled with boxes of all my pets and my mother and my grandmother. And I thought, there's no room for your dad. You're going to have to make the mantle bigger. And he said, you know what? You're the creative lady. You create a solution. This is a problem. And, we still have 6 dogs. And there's a bunch of boxes up there of our past dogs. And you're going to be getting more animals. I know you. So we can't have a mantle that's the entire length of our house. So create a solution. And so I went to a craft fair and I saw somebody weaving a Navajo basket. And I thought, well, that's a really interesting vessel. And then I sat down and had a chat with my father-in-law. And I said, so tell me something. It's not very often you get the ability to, you don't know that you're going to be in charge of somebody's cremated remains, usually until they've died and you read it.
Right.
So I said, I've got some advanced heads up warning. Tell me, what would you like? Where do you see this? Are we going to cast you into the Pacific Ocean? Do you want to go to a mountaintop? What is it you want to do?
Yeah.
How do you want us to memorialize you with your ashes? And he said, I always wanted to be a forest ranger. Why don't you take me into the redwoods and scatter me amongst the redwoods? And that way I could be a tree. And the minute he said that, I was like, oh my God, that's the answer. I'm going to make a product that allows you to become a tree. And that was the beginning of it. And so after he and I had that conversation and the light bulb was like, bing, then that's when I went to the craft show and I saw the basket and I was like, ooh. And all the pieces just kept, it was just so odd. It was like opening a fortune cookie and it's saying, and next you're going to do this. I'm like, oh my God.
That's not odd. That's serendipity.
That's how it works.
Yeah. That's how, I mean, that's a fine art to be able to read it though, because that shit happens to every single one of us. But if you can't read it, but you could read it and you read it so that this product could be created.
Well, and what was funny was I thought, okay, now that I'm going to be wearing the entrepreneur shirt, like that's me. I went to Damon John's entrepreneurial class, and he has a university. And so the first evening of university is complimentary, and then you sign up for a course after that. Well, in that first night, the gentleman who was facilitating had said, and he was reading out of Damon John's first book, he said, these are his words. He said, don't wait for opportunity to knock. You're going to be sitting there a long time. Grab the doorknob and throw that bitch open and walk through that doorway like you own the joint. Bring your product, bring your inventions, bring your ideas. Don't wait for it to be perfect. And there was just so many layers of information that he put on top of that. But what I kept remembering was, opportunity keeps knocking with all these little aspects of detail. And he also said, don't wait till your product is perfect to bring it to marketplace, because you are going to perfect it with all the feedback that you get from your clients. And they'll say, this is nice, but I would like it if it did that. Boom. Then sometimes you'll change your product, or you'll morph it, or like I did with the eyebrow product. I brought a men's product and then I made it, 24-hour wear, and then the ladies liked it. And then I marketed it to brides, and then it took off, and and so that's how this really kind of created itself. And I had been in the pet industry for 13 years. So I had a lot of foot in the door in the pet industry. I knew so many people that were key influencers in the pet industry. So I thought, I've already got everybody's attention that can really make a ripple in this pond. So I brought it to Western Veterinary Conference in 2013 and introduced it. And then right after that, we went and pitched it to Shark Tank. That's a whole nother story. Slept in a parking lot so we could be one of the first 100 people in the door. I haven't slept in a parking lot since I went to see the Rolling Stones in '75. And I had to get Stones tickets in Madison Square Garden. Okay, so it's been a while. It's been a minute since I slept in a parking lot waiting for tickets to something.
Oh my God.
But this was important. This was so important. So my husband and I slept in lawn chairs in the parking lot of a San Diego college. I don't even remember the name of the college. So we could be the first, one of the first 100. We were number 93.
Oh.
And we went in and we pitched it, no sleep, and just a little punchy, and pitched it like I owned it. And the guy and the producer for the show was actually eating his breakfast off to our left. And he stopped eating his breakfast and he was like, "What is she talking about?" And this guy who we were pitching said, "Well, how many have you sold?" And I said, 5. And he goes, 5,000? I'm like, 5. He goes, 500? I'm like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I sold 5. And he's like, "Oh, well, why don't you come back and talk to us when you've sold 5,000? I'm like, "Well, I'm not going to need to talk to you at all if I've sold 5,000.
Right.
I'm here for a reason." And he said, "Well, this isn't going to work." Okay, fine. So I moved on. But, it has had a very high level of success. It's had awards from every different pet industry publication. We were voted Pet Product of the Year in 2014. We won, we were runner-up in Martha Stewart's American Made contest. We were runner-up in a contest for Intuit for a Super Bowl commercial. I mean, we got so close. But the thing that kept us from crossing the finish line and being the winners is that the theme to my product was death.
Right.
And people don't want to talk about death.
That's dumb.
And so, okay, fine. But it's still, it made moderate success. I mean, I didn't make $1 million.
Right.
No, I wasn't the girl on Shark Tank that said, "I took $200 and made $5 million." That wasn't me. I didn't invent Spanx or anything fabulous like that. But I did help people who had lost a beloved family member feel better about their loss. And that was the reason I invented that product. That's the sole reason I created it, was to make people feel better after having experienced a loss.
So is it people too, or just pets? So how does it work?
It's very simple. I'll show you. This is the BioUrn.
Okay.
It's just a simple vessel. This is a small size. And inside, you see I put a little heart to start everybody on their journey with a little love. And then into a cotton bag, go the cremated remains, and that goes in first. You can either put this in a decorative planter and grow it in your house, or you can plant it in the yard, whatever you prefer. People in New York City don't usually have a yard, so they can plant this on their terrace in a beautiful decorative pot. And then once the cremated remains are in there, I include specially treated soil that have additives in the soil that combat the high alkali in the cremated remains.
Yeah.
You pour that on top, and then you put more potting soil in there. And then you go to your local garden supply store and you buy a plant that is specific to your region in the United States, because they're not going to sell things at your local garden center that won't thrive in your zip code.
Right.
So you're going to get your own plant. You're going to make a little well in the dirt. You're going to stick that plant in there, and then you're going to water it, give it lots of sun, give it lots of love, and it's going to start growing. What I didn't expect from this, and that really blew my mind, was when my son was 6 or 7 years old, we lost our family pet, and we had our dog Maka before my son was born. So she and he were very, very tightly bound. They had a bond that was unbelievable. They were like siblings. And so when she passed away, he was absolutely distraught. And every time he'd walk through the living room and look at the box on the mantle with her ashes, he would get all boo-boo kitty and all. And I thought, well, we got other dogs. It's not the same. I miss her. I miss her. He'd cry. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to have to take the box out of the living room, because either that or not let him walk through the living room, because it was every time he'd see her box, he'd be like, ugh. And so when I created this product, we used her ashes as to demonstrate the ease of preparing the biourn. And we used my son's little hands to show that children can help with the preparation. Well, what I hadn't thought about was he was so emotionally invested in creating this plant, this tree, that once we put it in the garden, every day he'd get home from school, he'd go straight out to that tree and he'd make sure that it was watered, and he'd look to see how much bigger it was. And instead of walking by her little box and being all sad, he'd come in with this huge smile on his face. I'm getting chicken skin from telling a story. And go, Mom, look how big Maka's tree has gotten. It has and when it grew so big that it actually started flowering, it's like, oh my God. Well, P.S., we're sitting in the gas line at Costco 10 years later. No, 8 years later. And we're gassing up the car, and he hands me his wallet. He says, oh, I've got money in my wallet. And I open it, and there's a little leaf in his wallet. I said, what is that? He goes, it's a leaf from Maka's tree. She's always with me. I'm like, oh my God. Oh my God. So what I realized was this product helps children get through the traumatic experience of a loss by seeing it as a circle of life.
Yes.
And a way of creating new life.
Completely.
And ding, ding. So that told me, I mean, that was like the universe saying, okay, Mom, you hit this one out of the park. Because if, as any parent knows, you never want to see your child hurting. If there's anything you can do, if you can move a mountain, if you can, do anything to protect them and insulate them from hurt, you're going to do it. And I thought, wow, I never saw that as being a what's in it for me on this product.
That's so sweet.
How about that?
As far as like for people now, my godson owns property in New Hampshire. And he said that if we wanted to be buried on his property, we could be buried on his property.
On private property, you can.
Yeah. And so I've never been there, but from what I've seen, it's pretty ideal. And my son owns property in Louisiana too, which would also be like an option. But I've seen so many because if you can't tell, I'm like obsessed with death, but like not like in a creepy, gross kind of way, but I'm just curious. And I've read so many things and seen so many documentaries that and I've gone to Mexico and seen cemeteries in Mexico. There's nothing as frightening as walking through a cemetery in Mexico and having the casket be open and the person's like personal things are like laying on the ground. It's just because they just put dirt and they put more people and they put dirt and they put more people, and then it rains and they come out, and it's just like the world is so inundated with like coffins and the waste and like all this stuff.
And the toxins that seep out, the toxins that leach into the soil from the embalming and everything. Ooh.
And when my mom passed, she said I could do whatever I wanted. And I'm like, well, I don't want more stuff and more. She didn't want to take up any space, right? Mm-hmm. And so we got an urn that was salt, and it was so delicate we couldn't even touch it because it would start deterioration process, and we buried her at sea. But and then how long does it, so like they told us it would be like 30 minutes before the salt urn was gone. Like, do you know about how long it takes for it to like?
About a year and a half. This is pure cotton. It's 100% organic cotton. So it will deteriorate under the ground in about a year and a half. And the reason I know that is because when we moved, we wanted to dig up Maka's tree and bring it with us. And so we had it in a specific, an elevated area of our garden. So it was very easy to dig down and get it. And there was no urn there.
Yeah.
So it had all decomposed and it was about a year and a half when we were moving it. So but to touch on the people, I have two really, really moving stories. One is very simple. I was at a pet show in Anaheim, California, and a police officer came up to me and she said, I have all my service animals cremated when they pass. And she said, I have it in my will, stated in her will, that when she goes, she's to be cremated and their ashes all mixed together.
Oh.
And so I said, well, and then what? And she's like, what do you mean? And then what? I go, all right, well, now you got a big bag of ashes. What do you want your family to do with it?
Right.
And she's like,
no.
So I said, did you ever think of combining the ashes of all your animals and your own into a biourn? And while you're alive, you pick the kind of tree you want to be. Right. You pick where you want your tree to be grown. Yeah. And you put all that into your will so that you save your family the pain of trying to decide what would she want, what would she, And I said, and this has absolutely no shelf life. It's completely sustainable. So you can buy it today. And in 40 years, it's ready when you are, because there's nothing in this that's going to rot away or expire.
Yeah.
So she said, so you're serious? I can get one. And I said, if you're going to be a police officer for the next 20 years and have, let's say, 6 more or 8 more service canine, you're talking about an extra large biourn. So I would make you a custom one. And I could even wrap it in LAPD fabric. So in blue and gold fabric, I make custom biourns. And she bought one. And she said that she told her family, it's all in my will. And her family had a farm with a pond in Texas.
Oh.
And she said, I want to be a weeping willow and put it on the farm right at the edge of the pond. And she wrote to me and she said, I want to tell you how wonderful that made me feel, because I can choose how I'm to be remembered.
Right.
That's such an empowering feeling to release your family of the responsibility and to also determine how you're to be remembered. She said, this blows my hair back in every possible way you can imagine. And I want to thank you. I'm like, let's hope you don't have to use it for many, many, many years.
Right. Oh, yeah. Because so many people don't want to talk about it, and your family's left. And so I had already made, it's before I made my mom's arrangements, I think. And someone we loved had passed and they didn't really make plans. And I called my dad and I was like, if you don't tell me what you want me to do with your body, I'm gonna throw you in a ditch.
Oh.
And he goes,
I love you too.
He goes, I don't know. I'm like, you're not putting me through this. I'm not gonna, I will throw you in a ditch unless you tell me what you want. And he calls me back. He goes, let me think about it. Calls me back a couple days later and he goes, I want to be cremated and I want my ashes put in the Mississippi River. He goes, I've always been a really big fan of Huckleberry Finn. And so I'm like, okay, but like, I can talk to him like that. Like everybody can't talk to their parents like that, obviously, but like, what a horrible burden to put on people to like not know what they wanted to do. Some people want to donate their bodies to science, and then like another friend had their grandpa pass and he wanted his body to go to science, and the family's like, oh no, we don't want to do that. I hope that guy haunts you. Like, I hope If he told you he wanted his body to be donated to science, and you're like, no, I don't think I'm going to do that. You know what? You get whatever you pay for. If he comes and haunts you, or he's a fart ghost in your house, like that's what you get for not doing what he wanted. Like,
Yeah.
especially if they tell you what they want. But I just wish it was so much easier to talk about, just like, this is what I want, and or do whatever you want, just some kind of little caveat, so that, and it doesn't have to be a long conversation, some just short and sweet, and carry on with your watching Wheel of Fortune or whatever. It doesn't have to be a big, long, drawn out thing. And your option is so beautiful, and it goes back into nature, and it doesn't create a whole lot of like waste,
and it's so affordable. Right now I've got it on my website for $25 for the whole kit. And $10 shipping. And these originally had been priced at $100 and over each kit. And I actually just donated 100 of them to the Green Burial Foundation to help people who had family members who died of COVID and couldn't afford to bury them.
Yeah.
And so I donated 100 of my human bio-urn.
Oh.
And so they're available on Poshmark. They're available at www.biourn4pets.com on our website. And I'd say, get them before the end of the year, because they're going fast.
Well, I just love that you're so open about this and positive, and you have such an awesome product that people just need to think about, like, what the other people in their life are going to have to deal with when they pass.
What's interesting, my dad came out to our house. We bought a ranch in Oregon, and he came out to visit us. I had no idea it would be the last time I actually saw him. And he was sitting outside, for probably a good hour. And I came out and I said, what are you doing? He said, right there. I said, okay, what right there? He said, you see those Italian cypress? There's a spot right in the middle. That's where you're going to plant me.
Oh.
He said, I'm going to be an Italian cypress in your bio-urn, and I want you to plant me right there.
Oh.
Well, he died. That was in May. He died in November. I came home with half of his ashes. And the very first thing we did when I got home was I bought an Italian cypress. It was about this tall, and planted him in a big old decorative pot. And we had them growing for 2 years in the decorative pot. And we just planted them out on that hill this past fall, just like a month ago. We planted them in that spot that he had chosen. And, this is a stubborn old Italian guy who, doesn't talk to his daughter about anything except what I'm doing wrong. And, we didn't have a lot of really candid conversations about really deep things. But, he sat there and he read the whole pamphlet about my product. And then just, I think in his head, he was like, you know what? This makes sense. This is a really good thing. I want to live on, and I want to be growing in my daughter's backyard. So every time she walks by me, she goes, "Oh, Jesus, watch out!" There he is. And but and it touched my heart. And I said, "Okay, Dad, I promise that I'll do that." And he said, "Okay, when I get home, I'm going to have a chat with my wife so she knows that when this day comes." And, right before I left to go to the airport and get on my plane, she came and gave me a bag with half of his ashes and said, there you go.
Oh,
Go plant his tree. I said, okay. And I have my mother's blue spruce growing, and my husband's father is a sequoia. He wanted to be a giant sequoia in the middle of the redwood forest. All right. So he's sitting on the hill. He didn't get planted where he wanted to, because we thought, if we plant him in Mendocino by the redwood forest, he'd probably go up in flames. It's not really been doing very well.
Right.
So we kept him close. So we have a whole area on our property that is that are bio-urn trees and bio-urn plants for all of our animals. My dog Chloe just died about a year ago, and she's a Christmas cactus in my living room.
Oh,
and she looks beautiful.
That's adorable. I love that.
Every time it blooms, I think of her, and it makes me feel good.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, I love that. Well, it's been great talking to you, and I just love you.
Oh,
I'm gonna go to your farm one day
yeah, you are.
and play with your donkeys.
And my llama and my alpacas and my
Ah,
dogs.
yeah, yeah. But do you have any final words you'd like to leave before we say goodbye for the night?
Words of wisdom.
Yeah.
It's actually on my coffee mug. It says, "She believed she could, so she did."
Yeah.
Don't ever let anybody tell you what your script is going to be. You know, you steer your own ship and you pick your own path and have a noble purpose, and the road will always open up for you if you have a noble purpose. I absolutely believe that to be true. And I had obstacle after obstacle thrown in my path, and as many as would come in my path, new doors would open up, and new opportunities and new avenues. And so you just always have to look for a new opportunity, because if I took a failure as anything but a learning experience, I wouldn't be where I am now. But every time I failed, I actually considered that to be an opportunity to learn about what I could do better or what I could do differently. And this obviously wasn't my path. So, onward. And so that's just how I live my life.
You need to figure out how to bottle and sell that confidence.
It's called tequila. Arriba.
Well, I love you, and I will talk to you soon. Thank you so much for being our guest on Death Diner, and we'll see you guys again on the 13th of next month.
You bet.
Bye, guys.
Thanks for your time. Everybody have a happy holiday.